Rule number 1 of Emmerdale. Weddings never go smoothly, or do they? From flowers to fisticuffs.
Losing a virginity in prison. You can't get classier than that.
We'll enjoy Emmerdale's most ravishing brides.
I felt like this drag queen from out of space gone wrong.
And from bouquets to BAFTA-winning scenes.
We're getting married.
It was really heartbreaking to watch. I was in it and I was crying.
We'll reveal for the first time what really goes on behind the scenes.
One of the actors, who might have been a dingle, I don't know, brought in a fart machine and put one end of it beside the organist.
You might just have a trump card with too many jokers on set. And there's one serial bride who's had more good hands in marriage than anyone else. Who is the femme fatale of Emmerdale? Is it Kim, the super bitch? Not even close. Is it Tricia, the tease? Try again. Could it be sweet, gentle, mild-mannered Kathy?
If there's a record for the most married person in soaps, it surely has to go to Kathy.
Now, was it 3 or 4 times she got married? I lost count how many times she got married.
Kathy Bates, Tate, Merrick, Glover, however she'd like to call herself, is the Elizabeth Taylor of the Dales.
There was a glamour puss if ever there was.
3 weddings, several near comas and 1 near miss.
She is the sex fiend of Emmerdale.
I think she had obsessive-compulsive confetti disorder.
She's had more men than Anna Nicole Smith. Do you know? Yeah, it has to be. Kathy Glover has had everybody. You know, it's like, new character, Kathy will get him. You know, all the fitties. And me and Jacqueline, who played Tina, would be sitting there going, oh, my God, who's that? Look at him. Really fit guy coming in. And he's going to be put with Kathy.
She had about 3 husbands. They all copped it, didn't they? She was the angel of death. I think Melandra would probably admit that herself.
When an actor found out they were going to be sort of teamed off with me, they'd renegotiated their contract, I think.
The gamekeeper, the tycoon, the farmhand and the biker. 4 very different men with a woman in common. Where did it all begin?
The first one was lovely, that Jackie and Kathy, because that was the traditional one.
It happened to be very cream, fragile ivory lace, very pretty. The hair was sort of piled up with lots of roses in the hair.
The first one didn't last long, shooting incident. I thought he shot himself, really, but, you know, that was just to get away from her.
But the widow Merrick would soon be a bride again, taking on playboy Chris Tate as husband number 2.
Did I say the first one was my favourite one? No, it must have been the second one, because the Tate wedding, no expense spared.
I think at the time, Elizabeth Taylor got married for the 5th or 6th time in yellow. So what does she do? She decides, well, I want to wear yellow. So whether she'd begged the costume people to put her in yellow because Liz Taylor wore yellow, I don't know.
Little did I know that Kathy was about to have as many husbands as Liz Taylor. There we go. So maybe it was a little omen. I wore the same colour dress.
But she's sort of Cindy and Barbie meets Elizabeth Taylor, sort of kind of works, but ends up looking like Little Bo Peep.
My favourite cheesy moment of her weddings was to Chris, of course, and he'd written that song. Oh, no, my ears still bleed thinking of it.
Just This Side of Love, penned by Chris Tate for his new bride Kathy, but something Peter Amory would rather forget.
Oh, crikey, I know where you're going with this.
Come on, Peter, don't be shy.
Yes, I can remember the weddings. Where the helicopter that Frank, with all his money, had landed. I seem to remember a certain song playing.
Remember, Kathy had the single out, Just This Side of Love. So, Peter's going... Oh, you're not romantic, are you? You're a Tate.
Melandra and I were asked when they came, go up there and what do you have to do? Just snog. What do you mean, just snog? Just snog for a couple of minutes, no dialogue, while we don't know how much of this music we're using.
And it just went on. It went on for longer than the honeymoon, this helicopter ride across the scenery as the song kept going and going.
But marriage to high flyer Chris would soon take a nosedive. Stand by, husband number 3.
But the third one must have been to Dave Glover.
The scriptwriters had a few surprises for Kathy. This wedding would be cross-country.
Why Dave had to take Kathy on a mountain walk in winter up the Yorkshire Dales, I do not know. If you're just choosing your wedding dress, you never have to think about, will I be going for a walk, you know, over the Yorkshire moors?
But Dave dies heroically in the home farm fire, saving baby James. Once again, Kathy is left alone. Any takers?
By wedding number 4, we have quite a different character here now. Now she's sort of toned it all down. Pretty desperate to get married for the 4th time.
The last one was to Biff, the wedding that kind of never was, because he jilted Kathy at the altar.
But unfortunately, the best day, the best time she's ever looked, and it didn't happen. That's sad.
Well, it's a good job that Biff rode off into the distance on his motorbike, otherwise they would have found him crushed to death by a herd of bison or something.
4 weddings and 2 funerals. Kathy accepts she'll never find love in Emmerdale.
In the end, I just feel sorry for the people in Australia at the moment. She's probably getting married as we speak to some unsuspecting Aussie.
Coming up, what happens when you mingle with a dingle?
I date Pollard once every 10 episodes, really.
But first, when sisterly sharing goes a little too far.
Sisters.
Nicola has no idea that she's sharing gigolo Carlos with sister Bernice. Plus, she's told Carla she's pregnant, only she's not. And on the hen night, Nicola spills the beans to her double-crossing sister.
And Bernice, with ulterior motives, was trying to persuade her the next morning to tell Carlos all the details.
She's so two-faced of Bernice, and it really, she's having an affair with him, and she's telling her sister she's got to call off the wedding.
With a nagging sister and conscience, Nicola forges ahead with the big day.
Nicola's attitude was, you know, shut up, let it be, I'll get pregnant once I'm married and it'll be fine.
The stage is set for the wedding from hell.
The wedding was doomed from the start between Nicola and Carlos because they were both lying to one another. Nicola was lying about the fact that she was pregnant. Carlos was lying about the fact that he was in love with her because he was obviously in love with her sister.
The audience know that Nicola's not pregnant. The audience know that Bernice is having an affair with Carlos, and nobody else does. And so poor old Rodney, who's in the middle of it all, and, you know, Rodney is his big day, and he's giving his daughter away. And Bernice says, well, you go on in for a minute, Dad, and I've got to talk to Nicola. Ah, some last-minute words of wisdom from your big sister, eh?
There isn't time.
Oh, we got bags of time. Go on, go ahead. I'll wait inside for you.
Bernice sort of says to Nicola, if you don't tell him, I'm going to tell him. So she drags Carlos out and says,
tell him now or I do.
I'm not really pregnant. Bernice just couldn't find it in her heart to let Nicola do it because she obviously still cared for Carlos.
I nearly married you. Nearly went ahead with something I didn't want because of a lie.
You love me.
It's not you I love, Nicola. I'm sorry, but it isn't.
But whilst this was all coming out, Nicola realised that Carlos and Bernice had been having an affair.
I don't believe it. Her? My sister?
The scene where we're fighting outside the church was actually quite funny because I had to hit Bernice with the flowers. And we got to this scene, and of course, because I'm hitting her so violently, we're having this big fight. Everything was flying out. My hair was coming down. The roses were getting ruined that we had.
It was a wonderful melange of accidental hilarity and drama.
So she storms back into the church and tells everybody else.
Can you shut that thing up, Seth? Thank you all for coming here today.
The moment of truth for everyone, especially poor old Ashley.
And it's this horrendous sort of showdown in the church where Nicola comes in and tells everybody what's happened.
Carlos, my husband-to-be, has just informed me that he's not actually in love with me at all. Don't know. He's in love with somebody else.
Ashley, who's not had a clue that any of this is going on, is absolutely devastated.
My sister, Bernice.
Ashley realises as well that the baby could be Carlos's, and it's all these, you know, devastating pieces of news he has to deal with.
So the wedding's off. I'm sorry we kept you waiting.
I can remember the day we filmed, and it was so draining because I knew that I had to cry, you know, that I had to work myself up into a state to cry. And I wanted to cry myself and it to be truthful and come from inside rather than just using a tear stick or anything, because I thought it's so important, and there must be so many viewers that have been through, you know, this kind of thing, and it's very painful and it's horrible and it's terrible, and so it's got to be truthful. So I had to sort of spend the whole day being really quiet and thinking of sad things to make me cry. And I remember Gary that played Carlos, started singing that Rolf Harris song, Two Little Boys, which sounds ridiculous now, and it was making me cry because I think it's a really sad song.
Do you think I would leave you crying when there's room on my horse for two? Climb up here, Jack, and don't be...
Wedding hijinks, though, aren't just reserved for the Blackstocks. The Dingles have turned matrimonial mayhem into a fine art.
Dingle couplings and weddings never take the course that normal... Well, why should they? They're the Dingles, you know. It would be totally wrong for it to be normal.
They always, one, involve the police, and two, they involve people running around the church.
You ruined my day! There's always too much drink. There's nearly always a fight.
Lots of arguments.
Getting very drunk, having a knees up.
Screaming matches.
Probably a fight as well.
You know you're in for trouble.
The Dingles rock.
Forget taste. I mean, taste does not come into the scenario at all.
Absolute chaos.
Absolute chaos.
Absolute chaos.
A Dingle wedding's all of that, with a bit of inbreeding.
And we're talking Mandy and Butch, remember? It wasn't love, though. They were being paid off by Paddy's mum. But fate and Emmerdale producers decided to unite the cuddly couple in holy matrimony.
The wedding that had all the trimmings, the white dress, the bouquet, the beautiful overflowing bride, was Mandy's wedding to Paddy. And I had to keep banishing from my mind the feeling that here was a rabbit, you know, in the glare of headlights, because poor Paddy didn't have a prayer.
While Paddy was in for a shock, Mandy was having her own jitters about the big day.
He's got to say yes to spending the rest of his life with some common fat lass that just brawls in the street, and I'm just so...
You've got to concern yourself with whether Paddy is lucky or not to have you, not the other way round.
Do you reckon? I think she really questioned at that point, you know, he's a vet, for God's sake. You know, he was a well-to-do man, and why is he falling for Dobber Mandy? You know, so I think she had a bit of a reality check and just thought, why does he want to be with me?
And behind the scenes, Lisa Riley was also a bag of nerves.
When I knew that they were marrying me and Paddy off, I thought they're going to put me in a minging dress because of my taste.
But that would have been the very obvious route to take, and we really just did not want to do that. We wanted hers to be a fairy tale kind of princess wedding too, and to have the R factor, if you like.
So I got this dress made and it was absolutely gorgeous.
It does feel special, and obviously we want them to feel special so that it works and we get that sense of reality.
I held my breath when she arrived, thinking, what is she going to wear?
Monday, 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 Monday.
All right, we've established your name's Monday. What do you think of my frock?
Actually, it was quite classic for her.
You look stunning.
Yeah, that's it.
You look absolutely shimmering.
Oh, she does.
And when you walk down that aisle, if Paddy Kirk doesn't think he's the luckiest man on earth, he's a Burt.
Emily?
But the heat was about to be turned up.
What have you done?
Punch Pollard.
Mr. Dingle, I'm PC Wade.
I deck Pollard once every 10 episodes, really. It was like, oh, I'm hitting him again. OK. There was one time when they kept bringing a stunt arranger in, you know, and I said, he was called Stuart, the stunt arranger, and after, like, punch number 11, it was like, Stuart, you're wasting your time here, mate. I think I know how to do it now. I've done it enough.
He's been hit by, I think it's something like 20 odd characters, and I think Mandy Dingle has to be the one that has hit him the most.
Yeah, big.
Pollard was trying to wreck my wedding, so he's phoned the police. On the morning, they're there knocking at the door.
As a bit of a decoy from the police, they managed to get Butch to dress up in a wig and Mandy's clothes and run across the field.
I think he secretly really, really liked that kind of black wig and my trademark Dalmatian coat. You know, Paul running through the fields dressed as Mandy Dingle. That was a quality moment, definitely.
What the hell's going on?
Were you chasing our Mandy? I thought you were chasing me.
Well, I was only chasing you because I thought you were Mandy Dingle.
Yeah, well, I'm Butch.
Well, you don't look it. Oh, get up.
I love that scene, actually, where they're walking up the path with the policewoman. You can tell he's actually getting very used to being dressed up as a woman.
And while the police were off the scent, Mandy rushed to the church.
I have to get married. There's no way, you know, he can spoil my day. And to the point where she actually speeds the wedding up. That was a fantastic moment when they get the organ to play quicker. Then we can get up the aisle quicker, just in case, because we know the police are coming.
There she is. That's Mandy Dingle.
I feel awful now.
What a thing to do. No matter how much you dislike someone, you don't ruin the wedding day like that.
This is our wedding day. I'm doing you a favour.
Oh, Ashley, I'm really sorry about this.
Oh!
Had to be done.
Mandy eventually got caught up by the Rozzers.
We came together in the cell.
I can't lock the door.
Mrs. K.
But that was brilliant because we had to make dirty noises off camera to make it sound like we were doing something. And it started off with like a little giggle, like a and then it had to get more and more and more. To the point where we were like grunting.
They were disgusting, the first voiceover, and I think they got cut. And we had to do different ones where we were just going, oh, Paddy, and all this. But the first ones were absolutely filthy that we were doing.
The most unsexual noises ever. But yeah, they put them out anyway.
Oh, how could I forget?
We're having a cock shop.
I was an honorary dingle then, so I was pleased anyway. I mean, you'd give your left arm to be a dingle, wouldn't you? You know, you can tell your kids later on. I mean, when I'm 70 years old, I'm going to tell my kids I was once married to a dingle, because the Dingles are the Dingles, aren't they? You know, it's one of them classic families, and I was one. I was married to one. I was an honorary one, but I was married to one. That'll do me. I'm happy. I'll die happy.
Losing a virginity in prison, you can't get classier than that.
Not all Dingle weddings are a laugh a minute. One in particular left 12.5 million of us in tears.
I think the strangest and the most touching was Butch and Emily, where she marries him on his deathbed.
They were so lovable together, you know, and you never thought Butch would ever get a girlfriend because he was always seen as, like, you know, the too dopey one.
It was a perfect match, proper true romance, and I think she still is maybe her real true love.
Romance is terribly important to us, and I believe that soaps give us the opportunity to watch our own lives, but writ large.
To meet this man who suddenly looked at her like a woman, I suppose, and romantically, she came to life, and it was lovely to play all that. And we used to have walks and holding hands and doing daisy chains and things like that.
After the 24th of March 2000, nothing would be the same again.
They were so perfect for each other that everybody wanted Emily and Butch to be together. And then for him to be snatched away so cruelly in the bus crash, and he didn't look poorly. That was the thing as well. It was like one of those awful things that you think you survived, and then the news is, but you're going to die.
When I used to think of my perfect man, I never imagined you'd end up being ginger or anything. You see, I always had this picture of Cliff Richards in my head.
I think Emily was the making of him, and he just found true love because that's all he wanted.
Emily,
Yeah?
will you shut up?
It's difficult for a dingle because not everybody wants to be involved with you because you're these outcasts. And he just found Emily, who was a rather strange, had difficulties herself, and they were like a great pairing, those two. So it was devastating.
Let's get married, Butch. You've asked me before. Now I'm asking you.
A deathbed marriage. I mean, what better thing could you do? And she has me sobbing. It was so tender.
It was incredibly well played by those two, and it was very, very moving because of that, because that took place in the hospital, quite literally on his deathbed.
Emily, will you take Butch?
Yes, I will. I definitely will. I give him my heart today. And for as long as it's beating, he'll be with me. And when it stops, I'll be happy. Because I know he'll be waiting for me.
All the other characters around were on the verge of tears and finding it very odd and a little too emotional. But Butch and Emily, they're there, they're together, do you know, they're getting married for eternity.
Said it to the world now.
It was lovely. It was lovely. It's nice to say those words anyway. Do you know, the vows, I suppose. There is a resonance that they have.
There's no going back.
No going back.
It wasn't a depressing scene to play at all for me. It was a very uplifting scene because she's got a man.
I now pronounce you husband and wife.
That was a lovely one, actually. That was a lovely one. And didn't involve the tedium that they normally involve because, of course, we weren't in the church, we were in the hospital. And it was all very moving.
It won the BAFTA, I think, that year, and it was really deserved because it was really heartbreaking to watch. I was in it and I was crying.
Well done, kids. We'll just go and open the fizz. See you later.
And we were all crying for real at that.
Coming up, how the folk of Emmerdale tricked the press.
No, it's wrong. My magazine's wrong.
I can't believe that we actually managed to keep it such a secret.
Give me a mirror! I want a mirror! Tricia!
But first, at a fans' weekend, we asked Emmerdale aficionados for their favourite wedding of all time. Did they go for romance? What do you think? The top Emmerdale wedding ever was between bad boy Chris Tate and the hooker Charity Dingle.
Now, Chris and Charity's wedding, that was marvellous because there was so much to get your teeth into.
If ever there was a clash of two families or two societies, it was the Tate and the Dingles.
It was footballers' wives, really, wasn't it? It was white trash with cash. That's her, not him.
Charity coming from the wrong side of the track, marrying into, well, soap aristocracy.
Money can't buy you love, but it got Chris Charity Dingle.
Oh, and if anyone asks, stick to that bitter and heartless life, all right?
Sure.
From personal services, she became his personal banker, if you know what I mean.
To me, the thing about Emmerdale that's different from all the other soaps is Emmerdale is about the gap between the haves and the have-nots. It's about the people in the big house and the people who live in the little village and the relationships between them. If you look back at, all the stuff with the Tates and so on. And that's why Chris and Charity's wedding was great, because it was the coming together of the have-nots, i.e. the Dingles, and the haves-a-lot, i.e. Chris.
The Tates and the Dingles couldn't be more diametrically opposed in terms of style and in terms of acting, actually. You've got the big comedy of the Dingles and all the subtle drama of the Tates, and it's just like, it's perfect soap collision.
And the question on everyone's lips, what would she wear?
This is my equivalent of Kylie's gold shorts, and it's the one everyone asked me about. And the inspiration, obviously, for this was Moulin Rouge.
So we had the dark red velvet dress as opposed to kind of, you know, the white virgin colours that you're supposed to get married in, but certainly would be in poor taste for Charity because she's certainly not, you know, of a virginal nature, not whatsoever.
She kind of liked the idea, but I think she was a bit unsure, if she's being honest, in her own mind, exactly where we were going to come from. But she was terrific, and she said, well, let's go for it. Let's sort of see what we can do.
We just thought there's no way that she's going to be all in white. It's going to be something outrageous.
Outrageous it was. Charity, her wedding, and that dress were about to reduce the village to silence.
I felt extremely nervous, if I'm honest, because I felt like this drag queen from out of space gone wrong. No, that's no disrespect to anybody who did my hair or makeup, but I did feel strangely larger than life. And when I walked onto the set, everybody kind of whistled and, you know, took the mickey, and I felt really on show, big time.
When I saw it, I was like, oh my God. It certainly was different. I don't know that it was my cup of tea, but Emma pulled it off. She looked fantastic.
Once everybody kind of took it in, you know, they were like, oh, you look great. Oh, no, you look lovely. No, you do. That's great. You know, just trying to kind of keep it all together.
I'm sorry, am I late?
It's half an hour. Rodney's made sure that they can still fit us in.
Oh, Charity's dress was quite phenomenal. And all the stuff in her hair. She looked like a can-can dancer.
I don't think it's very suitable.
Certainly doesn't leave a lot to the imagination.
Which was quite right, really, because she's got a very checkered past. And, you know, she was marrying into money. And that's always good for a good gossip, isn't it?
May all your troubles be little uns. I doubt it'll last that long.
She looked like a hooker on her wedding day. I mean, can you imagine red plum panne velvet? She looked as though she'd escaped from a bordello. She did. I mean, I thought it was so fabulous. She was obviously trying to make a statement. She was thinking, no. And you know she's the Scarlet Lady, so what does she wear? Scarlet. Great. I thought, good for you.
If the dress shocked, the party after would knock 'em dead.
She could never be the virginal princess, could she, given her past? So she might as well let everybody have a good time. And that's why I think she set it in a fun fair.
And while Charity and Chris partied away at the fair, some of the other characters were in for a shock.
When we got the scripts for the wedding, the Tate wedding, Mark said to me, oh, you know, we're at the wedding, it's going to be great. He said, but we're working. I said, what? I said, but Marlon's Charity's cousin. You can't be working at their wedding. He said, well, we are.
Not very charitable of Charity, getting free labour from her own family on her wedding day.
She did say she didn't want nothing flash.
No, it's not fair. How am I supposed to show off my culinary talent with, wait for it, burger and chips?
The burger and chips were a big disappointment. We were expecting caviar and champagne, really.
Maybe I could make my own tomato sauce. For all his highfalutin French cuisine, he'd done burgers and chips and popcorn, I seem to remember, which I really liked. I thought it was a great detail.
Oh, this ain't right.
What are you moaning about now, woman?
Well, I've read about more society weddings and you've had hot dinners, and none of them had paper plates. And I blame Charity Dingle for that.
Even Posh and Bex have more class than that.
No teacups on the table, but they were just outside the door.
The director said, oh, God, we haven't got anyone to put in the teacups. We haven't got any extras left. Cherie, can you sit in the teacups, please? It's like, what? Are you serious? He said, yeah. I said, but Trisha's supposed to be working. He said, we haven't got anyone. You're going to have to sit in there.
She was spinning round this teacup for like 5 hours. Then everybody's like, oh, Cherie's still there. It was awful.
Everyone was wetting themselves at me because Trisha, on her own, you know, in her waitressing outfit, was sat in the teacups outside.
But Trisha would soon be a blushing bride herself. In fact, she'd get 3 bites at the cherry. After a wedding of convenience to her gay friend Jo Fisher, Trisha Fisher gets ready for her true love wedding to her own Romeo, Marlon Dingle.
When we found out that Trisha and Marlon were going to get married and have this huge wedding, I was hoping that Lance, head of wardrobe, had the same sort of ideas as me for Trisha's wedding dress.
Well, this is the classic kind of fairy tale princess dress, really, and this was her second kind of wedding dress. Her first marriage was to Joe Fisher, which was a marriage of convenience, and we just did a very ordinary, short little white dress. For this, we obviously wanted it to be very special.
Something that makes her look quite sexy, but in a nice sort of virginal way.
Little did she know there was a lot going on behind the scenes. Most importantly, that her own mother had snogged her husband-to-be.
Steph coming on to Marlon the night before the wedding, I think was quite spectacular and very good. And, there's the old joke, take my mother-in-law, and he quite literally kind of did take his mother-in-law that night, so it's not a nice thought.
Trisha was looking forward to a massive day, and it was the biggest thing for Trisha ever, her wedding day. So she's getting everything prepared, she's so happy, she has no idea that behind her back her mother is trying to cop off with her husband-to-be.
Despite Steph's advances, Marlon forges ahead and the big day arrives.
Come on then.
Paddy walks into the room.
Anyone need a best man?
They're all laughing and giggling, and Letitia spits out her chewy onto Trisha's hair.
Oh, no.
And then she starts brushing the chewy through her hair. She's like, what are you doing? What are you doing?
It's nothing. I think something fell in your hair.
What? What is it? And they all start screaming, and it's all like chaos, There's chewing gum stuck in her hair, and Trisha's going crazy.
Someone get me a mirror. I want to have a look. Give me a mirror. I want a mirror. Trisha.
And while Trisha's trying to get out, she cricks her neck. So there's this kind of double thing, and Trisha's got this image of herself going up the aisle with this sort of hair out here and her neck like that saying, I do.
What is it? I can't move my head.
And Trisha being Trisha, there's no way, there's just no way somebody like that would get married in that state.
Trisha's so vain, Of course, if you love someone that much, you just get married, you wouldn't care. But no, of course, no. Trisha doesn't want to walk down the aisle with her hair looking a mess and her neck in, a brace.
This is supposed to be the happiest day of my life.
I know it's not perfect, I know, but it'll be okay. It will.
But it was funny. Everyone behind the monitors were like wetting themselves laughing because I just looked hideous, this piece of hair, and then the next time I've got this neck brace on. So it was funny to play. It was a good laugh.
What was about to be a disastrous day for Trisha would be the best in the world for Paddy and Emily.
The wedding is called off.
Marlon's he's just crushed. But he lets his best friend Paddy and his fiancée Emily, who've had their bands read, so it's all right for them to get married, they sort of take the wedding. They kind of like, it gives them the wedding.
I kept getting letters saying, how could they do that? There were no bands. But Emmerdale told me, and they might be a bit disingenuous here, that apparently the bands had been published a while back quietly. So that's all right then, it's all legal.
Suddenly, Zach's walking her down the aisle, and there she is. Luckily, she had a really nice bridesmaid dress. Interesting, with a great veil and everything. Oh, yeah, no, Trisha lent her the veil. And it was lovely to play, actually. I really enjoyed that.
At the beginning of it, I don't understand what's going on. I think everyone's in the wrong position. And it takes me a while to get up to speed and realise that I'm not marrying the couple I thought I was marrying. I'm marrying this one now, but anyway, let's go on with it.
And poor Marlon's had to stand in as best man, which must have been horrific for him. And I always thought that was a bit too cheeky for us to ask.
It was quite emotional as well. I remember I had to do a scene where the way they shot it, Emily and Paddy, Emily was walking down the aisle and it was all very romantic, and Eva Cassidy was playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and then Marlon was imagining saying the vows to Trisha, and at home Trisha put her dress on and was standing in the mirror, even though she looked quite hideous with this neck brace. It was quite sad.
Repeat after me. I, Emily, take you, Patrick, to be my husband, to have and to hold from this day forward.
That I heard of once in a
And then after that, we had the best man speech by Marlon, who, of course, was supposed to be the groom that day and wasn't.
They wrote me this great speech where I had to read the speech that Paddy had written as my best man for him.
And when he proposed to her, and she said yes, fireworks went off in his head. And the band played, and his knees melted. And he still feels like that every time he looks to her.
Everything that Marlon was reading out, that Paddy had written, was totally reflected in how he felt about Tricia. And it was just beautifully written.
And he gave this great, fantastic, emotional speech. And Mark Charnock's so brilliant at these sort of things. He gave this brilliant speech, and it was basically all about Tricia and him, and it was lovely.
The best was yet to come. This wedding mix-up would be a real surprise for everyone.
The Paddy and Emily wedding was great because actually it was one of those things that very rarely happens in soaps these days, which is that no one knew they were going to get married.
And it was great the way that they hushed it up, because I don't think anybody in the press knew about it at all.
Tricia had her dress and Marlon had his suit. We had all the photos taken to fool the press that, here they are in their outfits, they're about to get married and it's all fine. It was just one of the best kept secrets ever. And I remember seeing Tina Baker. Oh, she was miffed. She didn't even know.
Emily and Paddy's wedding was a bit controversial. It's controversial from we, the journalists' point of view, because we thought it was going to be Tricia and Marlon.
We were quite kind of purposeful with Paddy and Emily's wedding, that it was the 30th anniversary, and we wanted to do something kind of to mark that.
And usually all the soap, the soap critics know. I actually still can't believe to this day that they kept it a secret.
We sat there like everyone else, waiting for Tricia and Marlon to get married, and then Paddy and Emily got married and was like, no, it's wrong, my magazine's wrong.
People did write the next day's column, obviously having not seen the show, and write that, of course, Marlon and Tricia got married without a hitch, as you'd have expected, and there's egg on a few faces after that one.
If Tricia didn't get her man that day, it wouldn't be long before she too would tie the knot.
Finally, the third wedding, Tricia planned a surprise wedding for Marlon on Valentine's Day.
Tricia set it all up for a Valentine's Day wedding without telling Marlon.
It was a bit brave of her, actually, because she didn't know if he would be up for it, because he wasn't up for it. She kept on hinting and he wasn't up for it, so she thought, blow it, I'll do it as a surprise and not tell him. And how can he say no when he gets to the altar?
He gets blindfolded by, I think it's by Paddy, and he gets walked down to the church not knowing where he's going.
Hello? Sense of humour failure?
Stop. Marlon, you're going to go through a door, and then I want you to take your blindfold off, all right?
Marlon takes off his blindfold. Where am I, And there's Tricia standing there like a vision by the altar in her wedding dress.
You've done all this? Gone to all this trouble? For me?
For both of us.
It's her act of love to him, and he was just chuffed to bits.
I love you so much, Marlon. Will you marry me?
And luckily he didn't say no, and went off just beautifully, and it was wonderful. So yes, Tricia's been quite busy on the wedding front.
And Marlon had a surprise for Tricia too. A hot air balloon to whisk her away into the Yorkshire sunset.
Hold on tight.
I don't know whether it's for insurance purposes or what, but we couldn't just be set free, to float off into the Dale sky. But we were, they had ropes, and we were about, I guess we were about 30 or 40 feet up, something like that, which was really exciting, I have to say.
This is for keeps, Trish. This is forever.
Forever.
Bloody cold. It was so cold. And I remember trying to do all these romantic scenes, saying, I'm going to stay with you for the rest of my life, and just trying not to stop my head from shaking. It was freezing, absolutely freezing.
After the break, Edna and Betty, Emmerdale's wedding vultures.
They basically damn the bride and then damn the groom and damn everybody there apart from themselves. It's fantastic.
It's probably an alcoholic orgy in progress.
And what really goes on behind the scenes at an Emmerdale wedding.
So it'd be like, abide with me. Right, and we got so in trouble.
And action.
With more illicit liaisons than Peter Stringfellow and a rocketing divorce rate, Emmerdale has a lot of weddings. But do the actors enjoy these big days?
Can I be honest? No.
You just sit down for hours and hours on end.
Everyone thinks, you know, oh, it takes a day to film a wedding, but it doesn't. It takes like 3 weeks.
Everyone always takes a good book, and Paula Tilbrook, who plays Betty, has always got lots of sweets on hand.
You've got the wardrobe women putting coats all around you, and it's like they watch you have a cup of tea because they don't want you to spill anything.
It's one of the few times all the cast are together. So I do like wedding days. And on a more grim note, I quite like funeral days for the same reason, actually.
Forcing actors to sit down and keep their mouths shut for hours on end is a recipe for disaster.
The actors swear and mess about and throw things and that. And Steve Elliott, who plays Zach, had a fart machine and put it underneath the organist's chair.
One of the actors, who might have been a dingle, I don't know, brought in a fart machine and put one end of it beside the organist.
So it'd be like, abide with me. Right, and oh, we got so in trouble.
I think we got into terrible trouble that day when it eventually got found, because every now and then the poor organist, who was a real one, would be playing away and then something go.
Steve was going, firing it. So she was telling us off, and we were just laughing in her face. And she's like, you were childlike. And there again, it was awful.
So, while the wedding looks totally slick on screen, there are tears and laughter behind the scenes.
You're laughing in between takes, and then you're trying to control yourself for the actual take and not laugh.
You can't bite your lip because you're talking, and I haven't got any nails, so I can't dig them in, but I know Lisa used to dig her fingers right into her hand, so it used to hurt her.
Someone told me that there's a nerve here, that if you bite it, it stops you from giggling.
So she used to do scenes with a really weird look on her face and that, and you'd realise it's because she was ramming these fingernails right into her hand, and she'd go like that, and she'd be bleeding and that, you know, from trying not to make her laugh.
When Adele had to tell me she was pregnant, I mean, the amount of wasted money that afternoon, and all she had to say was, Mandy, I'm pregnant. See, I'm laughing now.
In the uncertain world of Emmerdale weddings, one thing is guaranteed: Edna and Betty's bitching.
I don't know what it is about weddings with Edna and Betty, but it seems to bring out the worst in them, and at times they can be quite cruel.
Edna and Betty at weddings are like this dark heart at the centre of every wedding, gossiping, saying, wow, she looks terrible, doesn't she?
You've got this kind of almost Greek chorus that sits there, which is Edna and Betty, who just comment, you know, about the bride and the size of her bum and this and that, and I can't believe she's done that, and loads of really niggly little comments that just, it's brilliant, because it's like people shouting things from the gallery.
I mean, if you buy a ticket for Romeo and Juliet, you do not expect to see the comedy of errors.
And they're poised to say, told you so, knew it wouldn't come off, she's getting her dessert.
I can't say I approve of last-minute substitutions.
They're a recipe for a wedding, you know, you have to have them there in the background going, oh, look at it, you know, all that kind of thing. It all kind of makes, you know, a quality wedding for a soap. You have to have it.
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me. Young people these days, they're like beasts of the field.
Betty's the one who complains about the way they look, and Edna's the one who complains about their morality. So they've got this kind of like little sort of like, you know, heaven and earth thing going on, where they basically damn the bride and then damn the groom and damn everybody there apart from themselves. It's fantastic.
She's a flighty piece. He'll have realised he's better off without her.
If it's a bridegroom or a bride that they don't approve of, you can get some very, very nasty, cutting, cruel asides.
There's probably an alcoholic orgy in progress.
Ashley understands that there's something going on. There's some gossip going on between Betty and Edna most of the time, particularly in church. But it's the sort of thing like he thinks, best not get involved, you know, I don't need to know about this, so he doesn't. He lets them chunder on.
Be sure your sins will find you out.
It's all this behind people's backs I don't like. I think it's dreadful. And they should walk out first together instead of all this going into bed and all that business.
If sex before marriage is out of the question, could Edna ever say, I do?
The one I'd love to see a happy ending with would be Edna.
If Edna ever agreed to unbutton her blouse, I mean, the excitement would be fantastic.
I would just love to see that icicle melt. I would love to see that iceberg finally melt. and for her to sort of find happiness.
Wow. It would be cosmic.
Poor thing only finds happiness with her little dogs. And that's tragic.
Well, don't leave us dangling. Could Edna be Emmerdale's next bride?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, no.
I could say 100% that Edna would never get married. No, I don't think she would ever let the barriers down enough for that.
I mean, she did have the opportunity with Len to go a little bit further, but when he kissed her, but she did smack him in the gob, didn't she?
Keep still, keep still, keep still. How dare you?
Well, you deserved it.
But you never know. Some young Lochinvar may very well ride into the village and sweep her off her feet, but he'd have to like dogs. I don't mean Edna's a dog, I mean Edna's dog. Surely I never even thought it, honest.
So, apart from Edna, is Emmerdale a village of double-crossing nymphomaniacs or eternal romantics? You decide. But before you condemn them, take a look at this.
Every sight and every sound. And I don't know if I'm being fooled. Don't know if I'm being wise. But it's something that I must believe in. And it's there when I look in your eyes.
Surely you can join me, for old time's sake.
This is not the end. I'm not.
Finally, Emmerdale